everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another edition of Budget Magic. And oh man, I am so excited for this week's deck. It is super sweet, super awesome, and I think it's the cheapest real deck we've ever had. I mean, we've had like joke zombie hunt decks, which are essentially free because they're all lands and a playset of commons or whatever, but this is a deck I'm calling 2-tick red for standard, and it's rounded up to 3 ticks now. It was rounded down to 2 ticks when I first built it, and I am so excited for this deck because not only is it incredibly cheap, 27 bucks in paper, 2 or 3 ticks depending on your rounding on Magic Online, it's actually super competitive. It is so good. So if you're looking for a way to compete with Teamer Marvels and energy decks and all these powerful decks in standard on a ultra budget, this might be the deck for you. So a quick reminder before we break down 2 ticks red for standard. If you enjoy this deck and you enjoy Budget Magic in general, it would be amazing of you if you could take a quick second, click that subscribe button down in the corner of your screen. It's a great way to support the channel and the site for free. So 2 ticks red is essentially a all-in aggressive red deck. So the idea of this deck is we're in a standard where people are trying to kill us on turn 4 with Ulamogs, and our goal is to get them to dead or essentially dead before they can do that. So we are just trying to go as fast, as low to the ground as possible. This is actually my second build of the deck. My first build of the deck actually had some more 3-drops in it, and it just wasn't fast enough. So it kept getting faster and faster, and this is the bare bonesiest, lowest possible to the ground build of red that I could come up with in our current standard, and I think that that's where mono red needs to be. You just gotta be as few lands as possible, as fast as possible, and try to kill your opponent before they can go over the top of you. So let's break down this deck. First off, we start off with 12 1-drops, and they're actually pretty good. Bombette Courier is a surprise all-star of the deck because we get out of cards really fast. Our nut draws are like 1-drop on turn 1, 1-drop, 1-drop on turn 2, 1-drop, 2-drop on turn 3. We're empty-handed, and we got our opponent to a low life total, but by that time we can sack Bombette Courier on turn 4, draw a couple extra cards, maybe get a burn spell to close out the game, a haste creature to close out the game, something we need to get in those last points of damage on turn 4, on turn 5, and finish off the game before our opponent starts Verdurous Gear Hulking and Ulamogging. So Bombette Courier is super good there. Also just gets in damage on turn 1 thanks to haste. Falcon Rat Scourger is sweet because it has 2 power. It dies to Liliana, which is a little annoying, but it's our only straight up 2 power 1-drop. And Soulscar Mage is sweet because of prowess. Also can do some tricks with the wither damage thing. So we're looking to play one of these on turn 1 every game. Hopefully 2 more of them on turn 2. But if we don't have 2 more 1-drops on turn 2, we have a couple of really good 2-drops. So Blood Rage Brawler is just huge, and we can get rid of an extra land, we can discard something, and getting a 4-3 on the battlefield on turn 2 is worth the downside. We can also sometimes arrange it so on turn 3 or turn 4 we're already empty-handed, so we don't have to worry about the discard. And then Borderland Marauder attacks for 3. It's pretty aggressive. I think it's better than Carry Zev. Carry Zev just isn't very big on its own. It's fairly easy to chump. When Borderland Marauder actually attacks through a lot of things on turn 2 and on turn 3, and hits for a lot of damage. So these we're hoping to get down on turn 2 if we don't have 2 more 1-drops to play. And then on turn 3 is where our finishers come in. So we have Reckless Bushwhacker, which we can combine with a 1-drop to surge and kind of just pump up our entire team. Started off with more of them, but they're really clunky when you draw them in multiples, and our deck doesn't actually want 3-drops. So we're kind of built to have 2 lands most games and get to 3 lands hopefully often, but not too often, and then only get to 4 or 5 lands rarely. That's where our deck starts to get in trouble, is when we get to 5 and 6 lands. So to facilitate the lower land count, I cut back as much as I could on 3-drops, but a couple of Bushwhackers are still nice. We can combine it with a 1-drop to just hit for a ton of damage. On Crop Crasher is part of the secret of this deck. So what makes this deck in my opinion, so good is the combination of On-Crop Crasher and Cartouche of Zeal. So these cards might not look like much, but if you think about how games of Standard play out, what we often have happening is we're playing 1-drops. We're playing more 1-drops and 2-drops on turn 2. We're getting in this early damage. Turn 3 is usually when our opponent gets a blocker up. That's when, if our opponent's on the play, they're getting down a Rogue Refiner, a Tireless Tracker. If they're on the draw, it's going to be a Grim Flayer, it's going to be a Winding Constrictor, something that's likely going to be able to block our 1-drops. So On-Crop Crasher and Cartouche of Zeal take care of that problem and let us get in one more huge hit on turn 3. So we're getting in a damage on turn 1, a couple on turn 2, and then a huge hit on turn 3 because we can exert our On-Crop Crasher to make something unblockable, or we can play like a Blood Rage Brawler plus a Cartouche of Zeal to give the Brawler haste and make it so our opponent's blocker can't block, and that hits for 5 all by itself. So these cards are really what makes the deck work. We use these to just get in 1 or sometimes 2 more big hits of damage on turn 3 and on turn 4, and that's usually what allows us to close out the game. So the way our opponents are going to try to stabilize is by putting up those blockers for our early aggression, and these cards just make it so that plan doesn't work. Our opponent thinks, oh, okay, I got this now. Yeah, I took a bunch of damage in the early game, but I'm stabilizing, I got this good blocker, but these cards make it so that plan just doesn't work against our deck. Cartouche in particular is awesome. It's so underrated. Giving a creature haste is awesome. It's just such a huge benefit. It works well with so many of our creatures, and making a creature not block, even for just one turn, is just so good. So that's kind of the main plan of the deck. The last part of the deck is a bit of reach. So with the creatures we have in the deck, we often on turn 4 are just barely short of killing our opponent. We're close when we have a good draw, but we're often not quite there. These cards let us, even if our opponent untaps on turn 4, plays an Aetherworks Marvel, plays an Ulamog, gets rid of our stuff, our biggest creatures, puts up a big blocker that we can't deal with, all that kind of stuff, having this reach allows us to close out the game anyway. So Shock and Incendiary Flow are just literal reach spells. We throw them in our opponent's face to kill them, and then Built to Smash is basically in the deck because we don't have one more good burn spell. And Built to Smash is kind of our Lava Spike. It has to go on a creature. The creature has to be unblocked. There is a bit of risk that our opponent can blow us out with a Fatal Push or something, but when we manipulate things just right, it's just 3 extra damage to our opponent's face for 1 mana, and that's a pretty competitive rate. Lava Spikes he's playing in Modern, so it's basically a Lava Spike with a lot of downsides, but compared to the other options in Standard, and because our curve is so low, we can't play Collective Defiance or other 3/4 mana spells, this is the next best option for this extremely low to the ground, extremely aggressive build of red. So mana base, really simple, and part of the reason why the deck is amazingly cheap, just 19 mountains. As far as the sideboard, Lightning Axe gets rid of bigger creatures that our other spells can't deal with. So that can be, I don't know, a Grim Flayer with Delirium on or something like that that's kind of clogging up the ground, not letting us attack. Magma Spray, super good against zombies, also against Marduk Vehicles decks, just to be able to get another blocker out of the way and keep attacking. Destructive Tampering kind of does a couple things. It deals with Heart of Kirin, which is actually annoying because it's not a creature for our target creature can't block stuff. So our opponent can let us cast our On-Crop Crasher, cast our Cartouche of Zeal, target their random creature to make it not block. We attack with everything. Then they just screw up their Heart of Kirin. So it gets rid of that. It's a little expensive, but it also is very good in games that somehow get bogged up. So against like Marduk Vehicles, we often end up in a situation where we both have a lot of creatures. Hopefully we're winning the race. Our opponent's going to leave back stuff to block and not die. Then we can just use the falter mode on Destructive Tampering to make it so all of our opponent's stuff can't block, get in the last hit, win the game. Savage Alliance probably looks super weird, but the thinking here is one card that's really problematic in some situations, if the game doesn't go quite right, is Whirler Virtuoso, because it makes all these Thopters and they just chump our Blood Rage Brawlers, and they can make them again after we've announced what creature can't block. Savage Alliance, for 4 mana, it can kill the Whirler Virtuoso itself and kill any number of Thopter tokens if we use Escalate. And that's 2 ticks red for Standard. And that's our Budget Magic deck for this week. So if you play this deck, it's all about being aggressive. You gotta go for it. That is the only way this deck is gonna win. We are trying to kill the opponent before they do things that we can't deal with, and that's pretty much anything that's 4, 5, 6 mana. We gotta be winning the game by turn 5 in most cases, or at least having our opponent close enough to dead by turn 4 or turn 5 that they're in a position where if we draw an on-crop crasher and make something not block, we win the game. Or draw a Cartouche of Zeal, or draw a creature to put a Cartouche of Zeal on, that we win the game. Or we draw an Incendiary Flow, we win the game. So we don't have to have our opponent literally dead at that point, but we have to have them very close to dead for us to really have a reasonable chance of winning. That's the entire idea of this deck. So attack, 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 be aggressive. You gotta take some risks. You're gonna have to play the Built to Smash on something, knowing that maybe your opponent has the Fatal Push. But the power of this deck is it puts people to the test. Do they miss a land drop? Do they stumble a tiny bit, have one too many tap lands in their draw? Do they miss their 2-drop? We're going to punish them for that and make them pay the ultimate price better than any other deck in Standard, because that's kind of the entire purpose of this deck, to take advantage of the tap lands, people paying 4-color mana bases and so forth to try to facilitate these counter spells in the sideboard and all that. We're trying to basically just punish the meta for being how it is, and amazingly, I think this deck is actually really competitive. I think it's actually really good. I'm not going to keep rambling on, but go watch the matches. I was very impressed with how this build played. Check out the videos. I think you're going to like it. If you want to give it a shot, it's essentially free on Magic Online and only $27 in the paper world. But I feel like it's really good and it's really sweet, and I'm super excited for y'all to check out the videos. So I'm going to stop rambling. Go watch the videos. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy the videos, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, take a second and click that like button down below. It's a great way to help support the channel for free, and you can find the next video in the playlist right here.